I'd like to introduce His Honor, Mayor John Dickert.
All right, I'm a DJ in past life, so familiar with mics, and I hate these stand things. I'm going to read sorry. Is there water? Okay. Yeah. All right. You don't want to mess with that. Thank you.
That's fine. I don't want to confuse them.
This is a great day, and it's a great day for a lot of reasons. I'm going to introduce Nick after we read the proclamation, but I want to start out because we are blessed in Racine. We are truly blessed, and we're blessed with Jessica. We really are. So how about a round of applause for her? Our years here, the last 5 years have been a bit of a challenge, and at no time in the 5 years that I've been mayor has Jessica ever not handled every situation, tough or easy, without a smile. And sure, we can do that. And then later on she'll say, but you know it's going to be tough. But the reality is, I love her, she's amazing, and we're blessed to have her. So a couple years ago, actually about 100 years ago, I worked for this young man named Mr. Kashadi. And he had a son. And one day his son came to me and said, hey, I want you to take a look at a book that I wrote. And I said, that's so cool. And he said, well, I've actually written a couple of them. I said, I never knew that. He said, well, you know, there's actually a lot of authors in Racine. And I thought, well, what an interesting thought. And then I went to pick up one of Bob's books over at Barnes & Noble, and I started realizing, well, wait a minute. My kids are reading all Kevin Hinkes's books, and I used to run track with him at St. Cat's. I'm thinking to myself, there are a lot of authors. So I asked Jessica, I said, Jessica, are there a lot of authors in Racine? Well, of course, she did this. Yeah! And then started running down the list. And I thought to myself, wow, because Nick, who is amazing, has always said to me, you gotta come to Poet Laureate Society. You gotta come and see the Poet Laureates. So I did. And I walked in that night, and there were about, 50 people there tonight? I mean, easily 50 people there. And I thought, wow, all this that we've got going on in the city, we don't even know about it. So we need to know about it. So, in listening to the advice of some friends here, I was talking to Jessica and I said, why don't we put it out there? Why don't we just get it out there? And if we've got all of these different people that are writing, that are published, and that are poets and published, and I actually do a little writing myself, but I'm not published. So why don't we get that out there? And of course, Jessica said, okay. So we said, well, we're going to start here, and we're going to get the books out there, and they can show all their books, and maybe make a little money, and we can make a little advertisement about the fact that we honor in the press our athletes. But let's honor our writers and our educators and the people that are doing something other than that, that are also inspiring people's lives.
Thank you.
I mean, think about it. You read a lot of times and that inspires your life. Well, you know, a good slam dunk kind of inspires you to get out and work out a little bit, but this is changing our lives. So Jessica and her team, and Nick and everybody else put this together today. But I'm going to tell you this, I think that we can get this to the point where we are at Memorial Hall and full and packed and people and authors and writers. Now, I will tell you that my wife is an English teacher, so I've learned about the importance of books, and we have 7 bookshelves packed with books laying all over the place at our house, and she told me I gotta get another one. So it also is part of our family, because my wife actually taught me the importance of reading, and has taught our kids that. And our kids, if you want to get them mad, you take away the book. So we're at that point now where I think my son has actually read more books in his lifetime than I have, which I'm a little embarrassed about, but at the same time I love. So we're going to keep doing this, because I think that this is incredibly important. Number one, not only for our authors, candidly, to be successful, right? We want you all to make money. I mean, Jerry Renaud is not only good looking, but I want him to make a lot of money too. So, because then of course he said that he's going to build the Jerry Renaud Museum. Right? I'm sorry, Jerry, I just had to. Thanks. You're welcome. Okay. So we're going to keep pushing this, and we're going to keep building it up, because I think it's really important that we celebrate this side of our culture. Because I tell people whenever they give me this big hoo-ha about politics, I always tell them that if you remember correctly and actually take time to think about it, nobody says, so back in Rome, were people like Democrats or Republicans? I'm like, well, actually, back in Rome, they remember the paintings, the poetry, the writings. That's what they remember, because nobody cares if they were Democrats or Republicans. What lasts a lifetime is the art that we do and the writings that we do, not the politics. So that's what we have to start reminding people about. That's what truly matters. So we're going to do this proclamation, and then we're going to have Nick come on up, but it just simply says, Racine, Wisconsin has been called home by several literary legends, including screenwriters and directors Ben Hecht, poet David, all right, I want to make sure I get this right, Kurdian?
Yes.
Okay, don't want to mess up names. And cartoonist Dennis Kitchen, and writer-illustrator Kevin Henkes, to name a few, as we talked about, and specifically honoring Jeanne Arnold, who will be in attendance. Are you here, Jeanne? Where are you at? You were the one that was giving me. Oh, really? Uh-oh. No, I gotta be good. And the late Barbara Lindquist, and founders of the Racine Mother's Courage Bookstore and Mother's Courage Press, which eventually published 26 books on the themes of abuse, feminism, feminist spirituality, and lesbianism. And whereas the City of Racine and the Public Library will recognize and honor the city and county authors on Racine Authors Day, the book fair at the Racine Public Library, which hopes to move across the way soon. Whereas the city and the public library are delighted and recognize the talents of our Racinians, who have accomplished a great deal by writing and in reading, in addition to the people who are recognized in the world of sports and other prominent careers. So therefore, it is truly my honor to announce this today, March 21st, as Racine Authors Day. So congratulations to all of you. So, yeah, it's about time. Hey, Joe, give me a little work. It took me a little time. I had to, wake up a little bit, but we got her done. So, how about a round of applause again for Jessica? Okay, Nick, I think you're up, my man. Come on up here, and please do me a favor and spread the word, okay? Let everybody know that we have amazing people in this city. So, Nick, you're up.
I had no idea that Mayor Dickert does such a good impression of Jessica. That was nothing short of scary. There we go. We're just gonna leave that. I'm pretty loud. Hey, thank you all so much for coming today, guys. Look around. This is really excellent. This is really exciting that we have so many people coming into the Racine Public Library just to celebrate local literary talent. I'm very happy about that. Thank you, Mayor Dickert, for giving a proclamation for today. I want to thank Jesse and Jessica. Jesse and Jessica and myself were the team that tried to put this all together. I also just want to really quickly thank Kelsey Hoff, who's way down there. Please support her, buy her book, Sad Girl Poems. She actually created Racine Authors Day, and she created Racine and Kenosha Authors Day. I think there will be another event coming up in May, but this isn't actually the first Racine Authors Day. So I have I guess just to say who I am, aside from being a poet, I work here at the Racine Public Library. I run a literary and music performance series called Honk, which is, if you want to look this good, you can grab a shirt. I run a teen writers group for the library. I run an adult writers group for the library. Just very involved in the literary community, and I really love the literary community here in southeastern Wisconsin. It's very strong, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. Today, I have just the really exciting honor and privilege of welcoming up Jeanne Arnold and of recognizing Jeanne Arnold and Barbara Lindquist, who started Mother Courage Press and Mother Courage Bookstore. Like anything, you know, if there's a famous scientist who lives in Racine, or if there's a famous mathematician, or actually Jim McVeigh and I were just talking, there's a famous, we know of a very humble musician, but he's internationally known. You know, he's a very well-known folk musician. You don't know that unless you are in the greater literary landscape, the greater mathematical landscape, right? So, because I am in you know, the American literary landscape at least, I knew Mother Courage Press before I ever knew, for one, that it was in Racine, and for two, that I basically go to church with one of the founders of it. So when that came out, I was like, what? I don't know if you remember the moment, but I was like, oh, Mother Courage? Like Mother Courage, Mother Courage? It would be hard to overestimate just what an impact Mother Courage Press had on publishing, and specifically the things that Mayor Dickert already mentioned. So publishing about issues with lesbianism, issues with feminism, issues with feminist spirituality, and issues with recovery from sexual abuse, whether it's for kids or for adults. They were doing incredibly pioneering work in the 70s. They were publishing things that at the time it was dangerous to be publishing. And to have a bookstore doing that also. Jeanne's told me stories about women driving from hours and hours away and parking in front of the store and just staying parked in front of the store for an hour, 2 hours, just working up the gumption to get into the store, because it was like, you know, it was like saying you were doing something horrible if you were even interested in feminism at the time. So they were really doing some majorly pioneering work. And as I say, I think it would be hard to overestimate, nationally, internationally, and definitely locally, the effect that they had. We're very lucky to have that legacy here. I just want to read really quickly. This is from, they have their archives at Parkside University. This is from the archives at Parkside. Jeanne Arnold and Barbara Lindquist are lesbian feminist authors of Racine, Wisconsin. During the 1970s, they worked at St. Luke's Hospital. In 1977, workers at the hospital staged a strike. Arnold, a journalist, kept a chronicle of the 6-week incident. The women further founded Mother Courage Bookstore, an art gallery in Racine, in 1978 to promote feminism and to establish a gathering place for women. In 1981, Phyllis E. asked them to publish her manuscript entitled Something Happened to Me, which addressed child sexual abuse. Mother Courage Press published 50,000 copies domestically and internationally. The work was translated into Hebrew, Dutch, and Spanish. The press eventually published 26 books on themes of abuse, feminism, feminist spirituality, and lesbianism. In 2004, Arnold began a series of 7 books, memoirs titled Whistling Girls and Crowing Hens. We are extremely privileged to get to be in the presence of literary heroism today. Please, everybody, welcome up Jeanne Arnold.
You're not going to be too uncomfortable while I'm speaking, because Nick gave me 10 minutes or so. So there's some chairs in there if you want. Thanks, Nick, for your high-spirited enthusiasm. It brings us together today, and you add to our community through Bonk and through your other literary services. Nick the librarian. We came here today because we love books. And I'm going to begin because there are few books that have influenced my life and my life changes. This one I heard about on the radio, and I rushed down to the library and they had it. it's called The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, and it was written in 1952. So it's far ahead of the feminist mystique, and it influenced me so much that when I went to the library, it was there, but it was on reference. And I had to read it in the library. Well, you can imagine. That was when I was a homemaker and I didn't have to go to work. I ran down to Martha Merrill's, which was the only private bookstore in town, and ordered it. And in the meanwhile, I came to the library every day to read it. So it's an historic piece, and it's in my life. Then, here's a strange one. The second important book was Stonehenge Decoded, which was written in 1965. And Barbara Lindquist joined our church, and I was in charge of the church school and in the basement, down in the lower level. And she was bored with our minister at that time. It wasn't Tony Larson. And she said, I'd like to teach Sunday school. And I said, I've got a subject for you. And I handed her Stonehenge Decoded, and we used to make up our own curricula then. And she took it, and within the next session, she had the kids creating a little soap statue of them, and she made the lintels, and she had flashlights for the seasons of the year. And so we bonded that early, but that's another story. It wasn't that early that we became close. Then the third book I read, let's see if I can get this all organized. The third book that influenced me was more current in my life. It was Portrait of a Marriage by the son of Vita Sackville West, the kind of risque lady from the Bloomsbury book group, who had a lot of girlfriends. And her son found her diary hidden in her room, and wrote a book about it. Of course, he didn't say anything about his father, who was also pretty active in the gay scene. So they got along real well. And when Barbara and I went to England for one of our month's visit, we went 2 times for a month, I actually went to Vita's house and climbed up the stairs and went to her office where she, and there's a picture of Virginia Woolf right there. I'm kind of a Woolfy grouper. So, books are forever, as you said. Now, we'll skip the details of my life after that. They're kind of passionate and lurid. But that's all in my memoirs, so if you want to go to Parkside and check the memoirs, you can go. I haven't published it yet, the books. 7 books in 1,400 single-space pages, and I'm only up to 1984. So I have to get busy before I pass on. At that time, we were both married. Barbara had 4 children, and I had 2. And that's another story. Sooner or later, we both were divorced, and we were so happy that people could tell we were a couple. And we bought our home in Racine, rather than live in separate apartments. And my superiors at work were the work situation got pretty toxic at that time, especially when I would write feminist commentaries on, to advertise our bookstore. The Journal Times loved them. They printed in big bold letters, and we had submitted pictures, and I wrote issues on stopping the symbolic witch burning in Sturtevant, where they had a big bonfire and kids would throw witches on the fake course.
Oh my God.
I'm glad they didn't find me. And I wrote a commentary on gender equality, and especially in religion and in hymn books. At that time, Tony and a committee degenderized our hymn books. And it's important that our God not be masculine, because it takes all of us women into a subordinate role. And
Who's Tony?
Tony Larson.
I know.
Oh, Tony Larson. That commentary got the headline, quote, "Erase Father God Image." Well, I didn't think that went over too well with my boss. And when my immediate boss chewed me out for the last time because they were trying to get rid of me as a public relations director, I suggested that perhaps I should take a less visible job, like a bus driver. And he agreed. The bookstore was more like a feminist missionary center. And as Nick said, women would come and talk, but they wouldn't buy very much. Racine, with our Carthage and Gateway and Parkside, was not the hotbed of feminism. So we lasted 5 years, and we closed the bookstore without any debt. It was all our effort, all our work. I told I asked Barbara what she wanted to do with her life. She said, "I want to own a book. I want to run a bookstore." Well, I had a storefront for my father on 224 State Street, and it was a mess. It hadn't been repaired or redone since about the 1950s. So I'm going to pass these two pictures around to show you what, let me go one way or the other, to show you what we did. And it also shows you our opening day that was on the Oktoberfest that was started by the Lunamans from the main place. And I think it was like 1978. So before we closed the bookstore, excuse me, I'm not intimidated, but I'm not used to talking to you. Our friend and school psychologist from Milwaukee, Phyllis E, wanted us to publish her book because she needed something for her abused children to open up their lines of communication. And Barbara Lindquist didn't, you can pass that around to this one. Oh, okay, one on each side, yeah. And she opened up, she tried to talk Barbara into doing it. I wanted to do it. And so this was our first book. As a bookstore, we knew nothing about publishing. And we learned as we went along. We knew nothing about where to get books printed, but we went to Trueline. And so I had to keep it very simple. And Barbara did the illustrations. She decided that we would do the book after she discovered a way to take a small child alone in and unhappy, and move her and the boys, there's a boy in here too, and move them toward help and loving adults. And then Phyllis wrote about how to work with children using this book. Well, I, as a public relations director, we can pass these around to each other. I, as a public relations director, knew how to get things promoted without spending any money. And I sent to magazines social service magazines and things like that. So this book was very popular. And it was needed because most of the books of that time that talked about sexual abuse were little bunnies or bears or something like that. But this had real people in it. Now, even that we sold it to other countries, we never got any money back from this, but we weren't a big press, so they probably thought they would. This is our Jewish edition, and of course, it's backwards. Yeah, it's starting. Okay, now, we had then a whole series of abuse books. This one was Dating by a woman in Waukesha. This one, I forgot where she was from. This one has two stories in it by Pamela Portwood, who wrote the Poisonwood Bible. So she was writing in this. And this lady was from New Zealand. So we got around. And the reason why we got around was that we would go to the American Booksellers Trade Fair. And we had a little booth in the small presses. And if any of you have been there, it's like 3 or 4 football fields full of people who love books. So we had our little exhibit, and every time we had a subject, we would dress up according to the subject. And we were so clever, excuse braggadocio, but small presses wanted to get close to our booth. And one of them was the sexologist Joni Blank from California. She had owned the Good Vibrations bookstore. And it was a very colorful time being next to her. Then I got tired of reading, coming home from my job, which had I moved up the leagues, the big leagues, and got a job in Milwaukee Hospital. And so we started doing fiction. Of course, they were all women authors, and they were all women subjects, many of which would have been an excellent movie. And we were trying to get movie rights to these. There's a couple more in the pot, but they kind of faded out. One mistake that Barbara made was that she'd get so excited about publishing the books that she'd order too many. And we ended up with a big, big remainder of books. A fortunate Angel Lithography helped us recycle them, but it was a sad time when we had to do this. Now, Barbara, in the meanwhile, thought it was an excellent opportunity for her to get published. So she not only had her books published, but a book of poetry, because we used to write poems to each other all the time. Every day there'd be something in the mail. And she lived in Kenosha for most of her life. Anyway, whoops. This book, Rowdy and Laughing, was used by most of my friends, many of my friends, to send poems to their boyfriends. So you can see how universal it was. Barbara got an award for this science fiction, and it's very contemporary now, because even though this was set in between Milwaukee and Chicago and Minneapolis, there were lots of cars that would move without drivers, and they were very imaginative. This book is not my favorite book. Oh, by the way, she was intimidated in using her real name, and so she wrote her name B.L. Holmes, which was her maiden. So you can see how things were in those days. She wrote this as for children. She wrote it years ago, and then she edited it. And the book that I'm really not happy with, while I was typing those 1,400 pages on the computer, she did this in 9 days. I think she was a little jealous of what I was doing. So she pulled this together.
You should wrap up soon.
Don't tell her I told her so. What? Wrap it up? Oh. Wrap it up, wrap it up. What am I going to do? Oh, I wanted to show you this. This has the biggest secret in the world. It's a self-defense book for women. And it has the testicle twist in it. Remember that, ladies?
I love this balance of thing. I gotta get this in still.
Yes, I have to get that.
We won't be practicing that.
I have 25 of these, which we won't hand out, but I'm going to leave it there. And let me see. What else? Oh, this is my book that I published. And Barbara did all the illustrations. And it's a simple story for older lesbians with kids. If they want a resource for them, should their little grandchild come up to them and ask the big question, Grandma, what's a lesbian? I still have some of these to sell. Not today, though. Now, I have to wrap it up. Okay. Barbara wrote a musical, and I have several copies that I'm giving away on that little case there, should you want to take it home and read it. It's funny, and it talks about seniors being warehoused. And the music, I have the music should anyone want to produce it. So it's for free, and it's on the... Now, so did I cover Mother Courage? And did I cover Mother Courage correct? Okay. We had to go on business trips. Of course, we had to go to New Zealand because we had 2 authors there. 2 women were sailing around the world. And not only did I take pictures for the book, but we did a lot of therapy, because if you're on a boat crossing the Pacific with somebody and you can't talk about your relationship when you land on shore with close quarters in a marina, we did a lot of that. And we also traveled to pagan sites around the Stonehenge. See, that came up again. And Goddess. And we had a moon group at our house. And we also had a lesbian support group where young women were afraid of coming out to their parents, and we were afraid of coming out to our children. And I'm proud of the courage we had in 1974. We conquered in ourselves society's homophobia. They could have robbed us from what our relationship and what we've done. And now I'm taking advantage of having poets here who will be reading, because I'm going to read the only poem that has been published. And T. Perrine, who edited this, was a bodacious woman, of course. And the publisher is Banned Books. Okay, I'm going to have a drink of water and then I'm done. I mean, after I read my poem. I prefaced, they wanted me to preface, or all the authors were to preface their, and this is what I said. It is not important for me to write or to read about body parts and pieces and where they go or when. Feelings of intensity, joy, compassion, giving pleasure, those are important to me. Laughter, too, is sweet fulfillment. Okay, here we go. I'm not nervous or anything. It's a long poem.
How long we're talking, Jeanne? Like it's 45 pages long.
Okay. A secret lives inside of me that grows with care and love to be so grand in scope and great in size, that when my outside touches yours, when my eyes dwell in yours again, reflecting secrets I can see, my inside secret swelled so large, demanding to be free. It pulls away from nurturing cells, its warm, soft placenta place that held with care and love and grace. This essence rising, self-contained, amid the flesh and muscle and blood and heartbeats pounding, fresh, new life, and to love restrained so long. Past constricting lungs through choking throat, this secret searches to belong and to become united with its other self, to be reborn, rejoiced, revealed in humanness unadorned. This secret life shouts from my mouth and jars my brain, rejoicing, free, in oneness now, in love, alive again. Thank you. This is a newspaper article that will help you see more details. And this is our catalyst, and we'll put it on the page. Thank you. Jane.
One more time for Jeanne Arnold.
We have one more event that we're going to announce right now. And while she's coming forward, just want to let you know if anybody is not able to pay with cash, you can pay at the circulation desk with a credit card. Just let them know what author you're buying a book from. And now please help me welcome Melissa Caprellian-Becker, Alderwoman.
Thank you.
And while we're here celebrating, I thought maybe I would continue with that celebration. We are not only celebrating individuals, there is something that I took part in the last 3 years that celebrates our heritage here in our community and 5 other categories, but I just wanted to focus on our heritage. And while you are here, let me just give you a little bit of background before I present something to one of the authors that are here in the room with us today. And the city of Racine, along with some surrounding municipalities, took part in a national competition that we fared very well in. We had judges come to our community and judge us and grade us on the 6 criteria that I spoke of earlier. And with that, they would rank us amongst all the others that took part in this competition across the nation. We have taken an overall win, Racine has, and that's up against, again, all the other communities that took part of it in the nation. And one of the criteria, like I said, is heritage preservation. We take the judges on a tour for 2 days, and we highlight some of those things in our community. And here with us today, he does not know this is happening, so he's looking at me very puzzled, is one of the authors, David Roselle. David Roselle has captured something in history that a lot of us, myself including, would not have known about if he did not capture it in his book and share it with the community. So I would like to present to you something that every year we have at the Hot Glass Shop. Amanda Pathrat makes us a piece to honor somebody in our community who helps exemplify beautification, and that's really what we're celebrating, people, the community. And you are who we are celebrating today. And I would like to, I'm going to get it out of the box, it's very fragile here. So do know, this is for you. And it is made specifically for it's Greater Racine in Bloom is the name of our participation in the America in Bloom competition. And this is for you, David. So thank you for your contribution, for the words you wrote in the book, and for us to be able to cherish those memories that were in our community not so long ago. So here you go. For your attention and to be able to honor you. Thank you very much.